Thank you for joining us in this very exciting series of guest lectures that we'll have on organic agriculture. And we'll start off tonight with two organic ecological leaders certified from IFOAM. We've got Kanangwa Newlove joining us from Zambia virtually. Good evening, Kanangwa. And we've also got Mareike here from our very own backyard, farming just close to Windhoek. So this series of guest lectures forms part of the KHSA project. That's the Knowledge Hub on Organic Agriculture in Southern Africa. That's being implemented across 4 countries in Southern Africa: Namibia, Zambia, Malawi, and South Africa. And in Namibia, it's being implemented by the Namibian Organic Association and the Namibian Nature Foundation. And under the project with NOAA, we are working with the Namibian University of Science and Technology to increase knowledge and information that's being shared on organic agriculture. So thank you very much, NUST, as well, for hosting us here tonight. So the focus of the project is really on promoting organic agriculture and agroecology across Africa by building capacity, by creating networks and long-lasting networks, but also a big focus is really on sharing knowledge and information. So just briefly, Mareike farms organically in Namibia. She also holds a degree in organic agriculture and has a good background in organic certification of produce. And she currently leads the Sustainable Agriculture Program at the Namibian Nature Foundation. Kanangwa Newlove, who is joining us from Zambia, is an organic farmer. She's done a lot of sales and marketing work in Zambia, and she has been in the agriculture sphere for a long time. She's a founder and director of her own company called Loctaguna Organics. So she's farming outside Lusaka and supplies a lot of the retail shops in Lusaka with organic fresh vegetables. But I will hand over the mic to Kanangwa now, and she can tell you a little bit more about herself as well as a little bit about organic agriculture.
Hi, thank you, Vera. Thanks, everyone. It's such a great pleasure to be here this evening, and thanks for this opportunity to share my knowledge. I'm not going to repeat my full name, but call me Kanangwa. I am IFOAM certified ecological organic leader for Zambia. As Vera said, I have a lot of experience in sales and marketing, organic farming. I actually spent a lot of time working for a project in Zambia called It's Wild, which was transforming poachers into organic farmers. That was a very exciting project in the Luangwa Valley. Right now, I am running my own company called Loctaguna Organics, founder, and I have a nice team that helps me. We supply a lot of shops, including the airline, Emirates and Qatar Airways. And so my journey as an organic farmer really started as a quest to provide my own food. When I was 5 years old, I had problems eating meat. And I remember the first time I grew vegetables is when I was 9 years old. And from then on, I haven't stopped. Then I had a daughter, a little girl who's now 18. And then, my thirst for good food, healthy food, became even stronger. And, on my 6-hectare farm, I grew food, which, as I said, I now supply everywhere. And I am increasing my knowledge in organic farming, and super grateful to IFOAM for exposing me to a lot of organizations and colleagues from whom I have learned a lot of things. I also say that I am also trained by EcoCert as an organic farmer. Thanks very much.
I'm Mareike. I don't come from a farming background, but I've always loved farming. Even as a child, whenever I had the possibility to farm somewhere, I was really happy, and I've always loved it. that's also one of the reasons why I decided to study agriculture. And for me, organic agriculture was always the thing that I was really interested in. To make use of nature in order to produce food for us and produce healthy food. And luckily, I had the possibility of studying organic agriculture in Germany. And then I became an organic certified, inspector and certifier. For the international standards, we moved to Namibia. I worked mostly around South Africa and Tunisia for some reason. And after 5 years of doing inspections, certifying farms or denying certification for farms, I moved over to the Namibia Nature Foundation, where this is my first project and still my project, together with other projects, for the last 2.5 years, or almost 3 now, where we try to promote organic agriculture. And that is together with the Namibian Organic Association, of which I've been a board member now for 6 years. Over to Kanangwa, my colleague from the Ecological Organic Agriculture Leadership course that we did with IFOAM, and where we got to know each other. And it's really a wonderful experience for me today to be presenting together with Kanangwa. Of course, it would have been much nicer to have her here in person. I love you, Kanangwa, for being able to, with that spark of the passion for organic agriculture. I think one just feels it with everything you say and everything you do. So I'm sure that will also come across virtually. But we are really much looking forward to having Kanangwa here in person, probably in November, for one of the last guest lectures. So I can really recommend come by and meet her in person. I promise you will not regret that evening. Okay, so back over to you, Kanangwa.
Mareike. Oh my God, I don't know what to say. I'm shaking with excitement after that very passionate speech from my friend and colleague, Mareike. Now we'll just go straight into our discussion for this evening, which is the relevance of organic agriculture for the future. My daughter always says that, the future is now, yeah? Very exciting, and I like to take that on board. The future is now. Now is the future. And if you see in front of us, we have a landscape, and this is the Lost Plateau in China. I think the last time I checked, it was a habitation for about 50 million people. And there's a little caption here saying, if many little people in many little places do many little things, they will change the face of the world. I'll just tell you a little bit about the Lost Plateau, just in case some of you don't know. Because of overuse, the Lost Plateau became degraded, and it threw a lot of people in turmoil. They lost their livelihood, the poverty was very high, and through a project, I think the project by the World Bank and the Chinese government, they embarked on restoring the ecosystem of the Lost Plateau. What is very interesting about this is that the locals were involved 100% in this restoration. They did it by hand. And if you see the difference, it's quite astonishing. Hence, instead of saying, if, I say, when many little people in many little places do many little things, they will change the face of the world. Mind you, this is quite a huge area in China, maybe spanning over 100 to hundreds of kilometers. So this is really huge. So this evening, we're going to talk about why organic. I will go into this quite a bit, and my colleague and friend Mareike will go into the origin, the history of organic agriculture, and she'll also touch on the principles and definitions of it. So you may be sitting there and asking yourself, why change? Why not just, stay with the status quo? Well, if you look at the clip in front of you, you will see a caption saying climate change and yields. Well, it is very interesting to note, if you see right at the bottom, this is a prediction of yields, crop yields prediction between 2010 and 2050. And the source is the World Bank. So, you can be assured that this is legitimate data. The prediction is that even for Namibia, if you look, right, we're looking at a pale red, pale pink there. The prediction for the percentages of yields in Namibia is predicted to dwindle. If you look at my country, Zambia, it's a little bit of a pale green, not very impressive, but still the yields are predicted to be going down. And there's a big correlation between climate change and yields and also the activities of human activities. And because today we're talking about agriculture, we're talking about farming, you will see, as we saw in the last clip, the activities mainly to do with overuse. And this is sort of desperate acts of poverty. People overuse the land, they degrade it and use it over and over again until it cannot yield anything anymore. But what is surprising is that up there in Europe, we see that actually there is a prediction that the yields will go higher. And you might ask yourself, why is it that the countries that are high on pollution, their activities are more polluting? That is not rocket science. Europe and these other developed countries are polluting the environment quite a lot, but funny enough, they are predicted to have higher yields between 2010 and 2050. So maybe that's a discussion that we need to have with yourselves at a certain point, and even a public discussion is to happen. I'll move now to soil degradation. You see again, right? Most of Africa is the pale brown to the middle dark brown, meaning stable soil is very little in Africa, lots and lots of degraded soil, and quite a big chunk of very degraded soil. All this stemming from human activities. You agree with me that soil degradation does not happen on its own. It's exacerbated by our activities, exacerbated by the lack of knowledge of how we have to look after our soil, how we protect our soil. It's all from that. No soil degradation has happened due to nature. It's always been because of humans' activities, and human activities including intense modern agriculture, which is more high input and not taking care of the environment and what is happening to it. We'll see later on. And then just to point you to one other thing, that a lot of Africa up there in Morocco says land without vegetation. Now, when you think about it yourselves, it's quite alarming. So obviously a lot of flooding, all of these unprecedented winds, silt flying everywhere and all over. Obviously, the soil is degraded, and as we say back in Zambia, it is barren. I will talk a little bit about pesticides and fertilizers in the environment. A lot of you are familiar that, the current agricultural practice relies heavily on pesticides and fertilizers. And, when you look at this slide in front of you, the application of pesticides causes a lot of seepage, leaching into our groundwater. There's actually evidence showing that there's a lot of pesticide residues, including fertilizers, in all water, be it rain, rivers, lakes, oceans. It's there. The scientists have seen it. And also lots and lots of evaporation going into the atmosphere, a lot of land runoff, dry deposition, you name it. It's all happening due to the application of pesticides and the fertilizer in the environment. In fact, science has shown that there is a correlation between crop yields and our use of fertilizer and pesticides. So according to the pesticide action of the United Kingdom, please look it up yourselves. There's a lot of information that this site has. So it is Pesticides Action United Kingdom. And they've seen that there is a lot of evidence, you know, showing that there's a lot of massive soil degradation. There's a lot of, you know, pesticides and fertilizers that end up into our water. And also, because of this, it actually compromises the biodiversity of the ecosystem in the soil. And this leads to, as you can guess, compromised quality and quantity of the crops that we, the farmers, grow. Hence, Pesticide Action UK goes further to say that actually science is showing that nitrogen fixing plants, right, which are supposed to fix nitrogen for the proper growth of our plants, are hindered, right? They do not perform properly because of the overuse of these pesticides. Actually, the list is endless regarding this. Studies show that traces of pesticides residue as well as fertilizer are found in food sources of humans as well as animals. There's a lady called Rachel Carson. In her book, Silent Spring, she says that, I'll read this. She says that birds are being harmed by pesticides use due to the accumulation of pesticides in their tissues. Now, think about it. You cannot tell a bird or a bumblebee not to go out to a field which has just been sprayed with a dangerous chemical now, can you? So you see, there's all of this interaction in nature, which actually comes back to hurt us, whether we like it or not. And they say that actually pesticide runoff into the water bodies kills the water plants. And as you know, the function of water plants is to provide oxygen, right, to the life in the, you know, in the water. Now, a lack of oxygen, actually, more studies suggest that, has led to the fish, you know, physiological and behavioral change in fish, such as, you know, they are no longer aware of predators, they abandon their nests, right? So all of these unnatural tendencies have led to a depletion of fish, which is quite a huge source of food for humans as well as other creatures down in our waters. So you see, there's a direct relationship, as we see and as we're going to go along. So what then does this mean, you know, for humans? Pesticides and human diseases. Well, the American National Institute of Health says that there's actually a huge body of evidence, you know, on the relationship between exposure to pesticides, such as cancer, in particular testis cancer, breast cancer, and even leukemia. They also say that Alzheimer's disease, fertility disorders, and autism, you know, have all been linked to the use of pesticides and fertilizer in our activity to grow our food. And additionally, you will be interested to know that, I'm sure a lot of you, you know about this, that Monsanto and Bayer, the makers of glyphosate, and as if you're a farmer, you will know that glyphosate is an active ingredient in a weed killer, which is called Roundup. Very popular. Now, Bayer and Monsanto had lawsuits brought against them, right, by people who claimed that actually Roundup was causing them to develop cancer. And some of these lawsuits, quite a lot of them, ended up in settlements, verdicts for the positive verdicts by the plaintiffs, while others, believe it or not, were settled outside court by Bayer. And the argument that was brought against Monsanto and Bayer is that they omitted to tell the users of the possible carcinogenic of a popular pesticide. Can you imagine that? And what's damning is that the WHO have said, and I quote, they classify glyphosate as probably carcinogenic to humans. Now, this is the WHO themselves saying that. So there you go. So then, to carry on, according to the 2009 International Assessment of Agricultural Knowledge, Science and Technology for Development, there's a lot of consensus saying that, it should no longer be business as usual. Can you imagine, this was 400 authors in 110 countries in the world, all agreeing that over-reliance on industrial solutions is not the way to go, and that a radical transformation of the world's food systems, food and agriculture system is needed. Radical transformation, not just a tweak of, a tweak of the current industrial farming resolution, but really profound, going deeper and admitting and agreeing that actually the Green Revolution, which was conceived to, get rid or to deal with the world problems, has failed to address these key challenges. So this is a very important report which you can get your hands on and just read for yourselves, because it is actually quite interesting. And also, the focus on smallholder agroecology in my country, as is the case in Namibia, a lot of food is produced, particularly the staple food, is produced by smallholder farmers. So meaning that if smallholder farmers are neglected, you know what follows. It's unprecedented hunger and poverty. So then, just to touch on the 8 key lockings of industrial agriculture. So you see how it's been, right? A huge concentration of power, all compartmentalized, and short-term thinking just from the nose and the mouth, and also this flawed narrative of, okay, they will feed the world with what? Okay, cheap food because of this high inputs, path dependency and export oriented. And then somehow at the end of the day, they are expecting to produce and to supply and to feed the world with cheap food. But I'll just take you back a little bit, that this cheap food, which is the current narrative, is actually is not cheap at all, because the social and economic costs associated. If you saw, from the previous slides when we're talking about the harm that pesticides and fertilizer cause on humans and the entire ecosystem, it's quite, it's quite heavy. So this cheap food, which is laden with pesticides and fertilizer, is sitting on the shelf quite cheaply, and we're buying it and we're getting ill, right? And then the cost of it, our national health systems, the cost of it to our economics. Obviously, if you get a sick community, a sick nation, production would dwindle. And this is exactly what we're trying to say. Yes, high inputs, yes, cheap food, yes, but very high cost socially and economically for the entire world, as we have seen ourselves. The cost of food, I haven't checked for Namibia what is going on, but in my country now, the cost of food, one needs a mortgage to buy food now. Previously, we needed a mortgage to buy a house, that the cost of food is actually going up, relatively, but also they are still claiming that it's still cheap. Yeah, so when I saw this, I was quite interested. Say, wake up before it's too late, right? Very, 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 very interesting. And obviously talking about the same thing, this input intensification has got to transition very quickly to ecological intensification approach, because basically, compartmentalized thinking is not broad enough to include the fact that the ecosystem works as a whole. So we are taking care of growing our own food while killing the ecosystem, which we need to, harness and to support human life. My colleague Mareike will go deeper into this as she goes along. But, as I said earlier, this transformation must be deeper than just a tweak, a tweak to the existing agriculture system, which will mean that it's business as usual, which will mean that we're just maintaining the status quo and nothing will change at all. We will still be grappling with the current problems as we are now. The world is in need of solutions. I think everyone sitting here and listening to me agrees with this. If you think that life is getting worse, that's because it is. The global goals, 17 of them, and it's quite interesting that these are the sustainable development goals. I like how loosely the words sustainable is used in most of these meetings that I attend, sustainable development goals. And the first one is no poverty, followed by the second one, no hunger. Actually, the whole thing about the Green Revolution and the current farming, agriculture practices, coupled with what we're seeing right now, that the world is actually grappling with these 17 goals. And as I said earlier, all of these actions, our farming actions, our actions in the factories, all of these actions have led us to this. Nature has not done it. We have caused poverty. We have caused the hunger, and we have caused the ill health on ourselves. And as you saw earlier, the life below water is suffering because of our actions. So basically, the current agriculture system has failed to address these, and the world needs solutions, and it needs solutions now. In fact, I like to add that the current system of agriculture and other systems of, a few days ago, we were grappling with a factory which has been disposing effluents underground in an aquifer, right? So all of these actions, particularly in this case, the way we are doing our agriculture has led to our current problems. And I like it that we're saying the world grows. What are we doing about it? We are in need of solutions. Right. We think and we know that organic agriculture has the solutions. I am a farmer myself, and I will tell you that organic farming has given me the solutions for my business. I like to see that picture of worms, and I like to see on the other side this woman looking very happy with that bunch of spinach. I am a testimony. I know that organic farming has the solutions. On my 6-hectare farm, where we are practicing integrated organic farming, we produce tons and tons of food. And I will tell you right now that the need for even organic pesticides reduces year in, year out. The need for organic fertilizer reduces because now the soil works itself. A farmer, I just sit back and see the produce harvested. And I think, and I'm sure you sitting here and listening, you know that the world is ready and in need for these answers because life is actually getting worse. So I'll talk a bit also now about this. You can see how this is flowing, right? From this conventional productive systems of low productivity, right? High inputs, and also, you know, the peasant low input systems, which I know happen in both Zambia and Namibia, where we have all these small scale farmers with their low input systems, right? But not really taking care of the ecosystem, right? Because it's more on input rather than knowledge. So basically, our quest to move up, you know, to sustainable systems from an unsustainable to a sustainable, high productive system of agriculture where, you know, the peasants, the state support indigenous traditional systems, and actually indigenous knowledge, very, very important. And it's been high on the agenda of a lot of people to go back to indigenous knowledge and indigenous systems so that, you know, we tap into that knowledge. How did it work, right? How did it work previously? How can we now use, you know, pick what worked and use it now to come from an unsustainable to a sustainable, and from a low productivity to high productivity, while taking care of, you know, our ecosystems. So basically, I like the way this whole goes, this flows up. And this is just, my colleague will delve into this a little bit more. It's just best management practices, integrated pest management. At our farm, we use nature and science. My colleague is going to delve into that, but we are inspired by nature and science to achieve high production, and also to reduce our inputs and eliminate completely the use of chemicals and fertilizers. We know, as I said, that organic agriculture has the solutions. What you see in front of you, that is a picture of my farm, showing we call it no bare soil. We have a no bare soil policy. And if we find bare soil, people will get fired. And we use a lot of nitrogen fixing trees. I would rather somebody steal a goat than cut down my trees. I'd rather someone steals my chickens than not to cover my soil. So basically, we're very serious, and we know this has worked. If you cover your soil, it comes to serve you as a farmer. And you see this middle picture, that is a veggie box that was going to our customer from our farm, right? We have evidence showing that the food we produce is highly nutritious. And if you see here on the right, that is a fridge in a local supermarket, Loctaguna Organics, and we've seen the flow. So it is from seed to shelf, all through organic farming, best soil management practices, and also, you know, integrated pest management. I will tell you a little bit if I've got a bit of time. This veggie box was going to one of the people we work with, and she works with cancer patients in particular, and she uses our food to treat these people. So we may not have the science right now here, but we know from the results that actually this food that these cancer patients are eating through these therapies that we work with, people are going back to the hospitals and their cancer markers are, you know, are reducing, and the doctors are wondering, but not really coming to terms with the fact that that patient is eating organic food, and that's why the cancer markers are like that. And also, just to say a little bit that with us, our experience is that our production is going higher, and we can make our own prediction that in 3 years' time, we are going to triple the production at our farm, because that has been the trajectory. I will end and pass pass this on to my friend and colleague Mareike. But I'll leave you with one thing. There is no planet B. If you are a farmer, switch to organic farming. If you're not a farmer, you have got the power. The power lies in your pocket.
That was really inspiring, and we had a lot of very interesting facts of why is it so important for us to change our mindset, go into organic production, make sure that the way we produce our food is a system that makes sure our children can still produce food the same way or better ways, but they're not depleted of their resources. So we've heard a lot about the why. Now I would like to go a little bit into what is organic agriculture? What is it about? How is it being done? How can we as farmers, how can we as consumers kind of improve that or use that system? The title of the lecture today is more going into the future, but I would like to also look a little bit backwards and look at the history of how did we actually arrive at this point where organic agriculture is an important topic. So if you look at farming historically, the first evidence of cultivation of plants was already about 20,000 years ago with kind of, animal husbandry about 10,000 years ago. And at the same time, there's also the use of manure, of compost, of ashes to improve soil fertility and to improve productivity and production. So this system has sustained people for the last 10,000 years. But then in the early 1920s, that's when these modern chemicals, pesticides and fertilizers were discovered. And since then, they've been used with the Green Revolution starting around the 1940s. So we see about 20,000 years of natural farming, using natural resources to ensure productivity, and about, let's say, 100 years of farming with chemicals. So we call the farming with chemicals conventional agriculture. Conventional meaning kind of the normal way of doing things. But if you look at this, one is 20,000 years, the other one is 100 years. What should be the conventional way of farming? Just a question I would like to raise. So does anybody know what this is? Does anybody remember these pictures from the news? This is it was a fertilizer storage in Lebanon. And a fire caught, there was not sufficient fire protection. Fire entered into where the fertilizers were stored, and it caused a huge explosion that could even be felt on the other side of the Mediterranean Sea. So around more than 300 people died in that accident. Of course, it's an event that's, in the news worldwide, but it just gives one of these aspects of fertilizers being really highly explosive, nitrogen fertilizers I'm talking about now. And here really having detrimental effects for the people around the harbor of in Lebanon. Do you know what this is? This is a bomb factory in the World War. And the nitrogen was actually discovered in order to put it into bombs because it is so highly explosive, like it was in the fertilizer storage. So it was used in bombs to make the bombs explode in order to kill people, obviously. And only later on, after the war, the farmers saw that where the bombs dropped on the fields, the crops were greener. So then they discovered, okay, what's in the bombs actually made our crops greener. And that's when nitrogen fertilizer was discovered for agriculture. That's where it comes from. So we've looked at the history 20,000 years ago. But then in the 1920s, when these chemicals were found and discovered, there were a few farmers, a few pioneers that already then had the feeling and the knowledge, if I want to produce healthy food, I want to produce it in a way that, my children can still produce it, that is healthy for the environment. The chemical way is not the right way to go. There were these pioneers. And on the left-hand side, that's Rudolf Steiner, who is kind of the first founder of organic agriculture, specifically looking at biodynamic agriculture, which is kind of a specific part of a specific way of organic farming. And then in the 1950s, Mr. Rodale in the United States he was really engaged in what's now called organic farming, organic principles, organic practices. He did a lot of research around ensuring soil fertility. Mostly how can we produce without using chemicals, but in a really productive way. And a lot of today's practices in organic agriculture are still based on kind of what he discovered in his research. Yes, so then that movement grew. These pioneers, there were other people that came on board that farmed in organic ways, and people that saw, okay, these are the products that I want to consume. This is the quality that I'm looking for. It grew, that movement grew, and around the 1970s, it was so big that the people that were looking for this food were not able to just go to the farmers and buy. So by going there, they could see, okay, this is the way I want my food to be produced. But other farmers were trading larger distances, so the consumers couldn't just go. And they needed some kind of assurance that if I'm buying this product and it's called organic, it really is produced in the way that I want my food to be produced. So that made standards and certification being necessary. And one thing I think about when I see this, I sometimes think, the organic way is the way of not causing harm to the environment, ensuring people's health, really having a lot of beneficial aspects. But organic agriculture has to go through quite an expensive and also very time-consuming process of certification. Isn't the form of agriculture that is causing people's health to decline, environmental health to decline, lots of negative effects, wouldn't they be the ones that should go through an expensive process of certification for their production system, because they are harming the environment? The organic farming is not harming the environment. But just a food for thought. So in the 1970s, IFOAM was founded, where Kanangwa and I did this leadership course. It's the International Federation of Organic Movements and the umbrella organization for organic organizations worldwide. In the 1990s, the EU founded their organic standard, which is kind of the basis of most of organic trade nowadays. And since then, organic trade has been growing tremendously, with 2021 retail sales reaching 125 billion euros in that year. So really a huge market that is within, this is now only for certified organic products. So some numbers, some graphs for those that like numbers and graphs. Here you see, on the left-hand side, you see the area certified organic since 2000. And you see there's a really steep increase in that area. And then on the right-hand side, you see the sales. So you see that mostly Europe and North America, that's where most of the certified organic products are being sold. Just to highlight these statistics, they are on internationally traded organic products. So they go through this international certification. Of course, there's a lot more products being produced, especially by small-scale farmers, according to organic principles, farmers that really make sure that they have a productive system that ensures food security of them and their families, but they wouldn't go through this certification. So this data is not captured here. This is for internationally traded organic products, because that's where this data is available. So the consumption is mostly in Europe and North America. And then if we look at the next slide, we have the number of farmers on the left-hand side, which is, so farmers that are certified organic, and that is mostly Asia and Africa. So completely different. Most farmers benefiting from organic sales are in Asia and Africa, looking at the number. But then if you look at the land, that's mostly in Oceania, which is mostly Australia, and Europe. So you have the consumption is mostly in Europe and North America. The production land-wise, it's mostly in Australia. But then most farmers producing certified organic are in Asia and Africa. So these are lots of small-scale farmers that are in that system. So I always find it quite amazing how that all differs. Yes. So now going to the basics. We've looked a lot at the kind of higher level information, and now looking at what is organic agriculture and how is it being practiced. So first, the definition. It's always a bit dry, but I think also important. So that first sentence, that organic agriculture is a production system that sustains the health of soils, ecosystems, and people. That really is summing it up. It wants to have a high productive system of producing food, but in a way that the health of soils, ecosystems, and people is ensured. So it relies on ecological processes, biodiversity, and cycles adapted to local conditions rather than the use of inputs with adverse effects. So as Kanangwa said, organic agriculture is knowledge intensive. You have to know how you can harness these natural systems in order to produce productively. It's not just about leaving out chemicals. That's often a perception. Yes, I don't use chemicals, so I'm farming organically, but it's not producing a lot, so it's not really working. Organic agriculture is knowledge intensive. You have to know how to do your farming, like you saw on the picture from Kanangwa, in order to really be productive. And as Kanangwa say, you know, after a while you lie back and you just see the crops grow and then harvest. Of course, Kanangwa is still a lot in her field, but over time it gets more and more productive, as compared to chemical systems where over time it gets less and less productive and you always need more chemical inputs. And organic agriculture combines tradition, innovation, and science to benefit the shared environment and promote fair relationships and a good quality of life for all involved. So, as Kanangwa also said, it combines this traditional knowledge with science and seeing how can we make best use of these two aspects in farming and in gaining knowledge and knowing how to farm in the best possible way. And it also has a strong social component. So this fairness for all the people involved, the producers as well as the consumers, but then also the fairness to the environment, to the livestock on your farm is very important. So organic agriculture has these 4 principles, with the first one being the principle of health. It sustains the health of soils, plants, animals, humans, and the planet as a whole. So really looking at it from a holistic view, saying this is what we want to ensure through our food production. The principle of ecology, so making use of natural principles and cycles to produce food. Not working against nature, but working with nature. And then the principle of fairness, looking at the different stakeholders involved in, let's say, the value chain, but then also the fairness to whatever you're farming with, the livestock, the plants, and making sure that there are common opportunities of everybody involved. And last but not least, the principle of care. Organic farmers want to take care of what they're farming with and farm with the resources that we have nowadays in a way that we don't compromise future generations. So that was the what, now the how. The first sentence from the definition, it is a production system that's sustaining the health of soils, ecosystems, and people. It's a lot. Also, me as an organic farmer, it all comes down to soil. Building healthy soil solves everything. Of course, that's a bit, yes, very, very straightforward. But if you look at it, what soils can actually do, it is true. If you have a healthy soil with good microorganisms, so a living soil, that's the essential bit that's really important. Have a healthy soil, have a living soil. If you have that, you have healthy plants. The plants get the nutrients in the way they need the nutrients, and in the format they need the nutrients in order to become strong. If you use chemical fertilizers, yes, the plants do grow and they do produce, but the plant is very weak. It will need a lot of chemicals in order to protect it from all the effects from the environment. And the food it produces has a lot less nutrients, because the way it gets the nutrients is not a balanced diet for the food. It is like a very high productivity diet that makes it grow very quickly but not be a healthy organism. We have sand, we have the mineral components of the soil, but very often our organic matter is missing, especially here in Namibia. If you have good organic matter, so you have compost, you put the manure in, you put the leaves from the trees growing around the field, you have your mulching that over time disintegrates into the soil, that will improve your organic matter in your farming. If you have high organic matter content, there are these 2 pictures. On the right, you see these 2 soils, one being darker than the other one, and the darker one has more organic matter. It's not only darker, that comes from the organic matter, but it's also much more crumbly if you look at the structure. So in this crumbly soil, the soil will be much better able to hold air that the plants also need to grow, as well as water. And that's also then shown on the picture on the right-hand side. It's two pieces of soil, one from a soil that has low organic matter content and one with high organic matter content, being put into water. And the one with low organic matter content will dissolve almost immediately. It will just sink to the bottom and have no shape anymore. But with high organic matter content, it stays stable. You also see, if you look carefully, you see some bubbles on the outside. So that's a lot of air that's in this soil. And all of these pores in the soil, they can be filled with water. So if you have a rain event with a lot of rain, the water can go much better into a soil with high organic matter content. So it will not run off, cause erosion. So if you have erosion, you lose your soil as well as your water. But if you have a good soil and high organic matter content, it will infiltrate and it will also stay there for much longer, being available to the plants, not being lost through evaporation and not being drained. So in the sandy soils in Namibia, we very often have very high drainage with the water just kind of flowing through. But if you have good organic matter content, the water stays where the roots are. This is just as an example for what I was just talking about. It's a trial in Switzerland that's been running for over 30 years now, I think, where they're comparing conventional agriculture, organic agriculture, and biodynamic agriculture. These plots are farmed with these practices now for over 30 years, and they see what is the difference in terms of lots of different factors. So this is after a strong rain event. You see the conventional plot has much more water standing on top, much more erosion. It's not able to infiltrate the water very well. But the biodynamic plot, being organic, has a lot better infiltration. So that water will be available to these plants for much longer than the water that's just running off the top. And then the next one we have, it's a similar trial, but in the States. And this is being taken in a drought situation. So the land that's farmed conventionally, the production is much lower than on the land that's farmed organically. And that is really something that's specific about organic agriculture. If you have a perfect year, you might have a much higher yield from your conventional. But if you have a year that's difficult, and in Namibia, I think we very often have difficult years. There are droughts, there are also floods, and production is very difficult, especially in Namibia, I think. And especially under these difficult conditions, organic has so many times proven to be more productive because water stays available to the plants much longer, so drought having not such a big effect, as well as infiltrating water better, and nutrients being available. If you have a healthy soil, the nutrients are available continuously. In the conventional farming, if you're adding chemical fertilizers, the nutrients are available for a certain period of time, but then you have to replenish them. So if you don't have the funds to always buy your chemical inputs, you're losing out and the soil will not be able to sustain a crop. Then the second one, so organic farming sustains the health of soils, ecosystems, and people. And ecosystems, if you look at a natural system, you will never have a monocrop. You will never have just one type of plant or just one type of animal. You will always have diversity. And that is what we're using in organic farming in order to be productive. We need diversity in order to produce healthy food. The plants, they are benefiting each other with being companions. We call it companion planting. Integrating livestock will benefit your production tremendously as well, so your livestock as well as your crops. And that's being used, so a healthy ecosystem will produce healthy food. As one example of making use of natural cycles and the effects of ecosystem is this, what's called the push-pull method. So a lot of us know the problem of fall armyworm or stem borer in maize, as well as the trigger weed, this parasitic weed on the roots of maize. And this is a system that was developed in Eastern Africa, but is now used mainly all over Africa, also in other countries. Kanangwa is also using it on her farm. So they found that desmodium, which is a legume, so legumes fix nitrogen, so they will actually improve soil fertility by growing there. They will not take the nutrients away from the maize, but they will improve the soil. But the moths, they don't like desmodium. They will go somewhere else. But of course, if they don't have something to put their eggs, they will still come back. They will not like it very much, but they need somewhere to put their eggs. So that's why the bracharia grass is grown on the side of the field, which is something where the moths think this is a good plant for my eggs. They will lay the eggs in that grass, but then the larvae, they can't actually digest this grass, so they will die. So this is how organic farming makes use of natural principles in order to have a healthy crop and healthy ecosystems. It's not something where the farmer always continuously has to go back and check and spray and buy inputs, but it's a natural system that really has proven to work very well, just as an example. So that's then the companion planting. That was just one example of companion planting. There are lots of other examples. And then the picture that you saw in Kanangwa's presentation already. I want to highlight on the mulching what Kanangwa said. I think once you really get into mulching, you can't stand bare soil anymore. It's the same for me. If I see bare soil, it hurts. And if I see covered soil, I know that this is soil that's alive, that is cool, warm during the night, cool during the day, where the roots of the plants can grow well in, where the microbes and the living organisms can survive, where the water is safe, there's much less losses due to evaporation. It's just a much more healthy system. And then last but not least, people. It also sustains the health of people. And it's applicable for small and large-scale farms. Of course, the way you produce is a bit different, but the principles are the same. And organic agriculture can produce healthy food for basically everybody. But here, for example, you see Janga from Babwata National Park. She's growing a food circle. It's a system that was developed by the Kambushu Institute. And it's growing a very diverse set of crops on a small area, making use of water in the most efficient way. Because in many setups, water is really the limiting factor to growing your food. So this circle can be mostly watered with grey water from the household, with some clean water depending on the plants. There's a concept behind it, and it produces food for the whole household. Also, I'm also a mother, so seeing this picture of a child being in the field, I can really feel with it. For me, it's such a benefit to be able to go with my kids into a field or into a garden and knowing if they're picking a tomato or a strawberry here, they will not be poisoned. And I think that is really beneficial. If we look at our children and grandchildren and future generations, we don't want to poison them. And then on the right, there was Eunice. She's growing a very diverse set of grain crops together with legumes in Zambezi region. And she has improved her household food security tremendously and is also generating an income with surplus sales, as well as now sharing her knowledge that she's gained over the years through training and practical experience. So she's generating an income through sales as well as trainings that she's offering. And now, I think that's the last slide. Kanangwa again in her garden, standing with her mulching, and then also some livestock with my chickens and myself. So there's a lot of people involved in organic agriculture from all over the world, all shapes, colors, and forms of farming, and it really can benefit everybody. Yes, so that's what I would like to close with. Just to highlight again this shelf that Kanangwa already shared. That's really what I would hope for Namibia. I would hope that we will have shelves like this in the supermarkets. The supermarkets are really keen to get organic produce, be able from our farmers to produce these crops and for consumers to buy them and live healthily.